Did you have anything else on your super extensive giant list? Nothing? Karen?
I have a list.
Are you ready to explore your list?
Sure. Absolutely.
No, you're not ready. You're still hitting buttons. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Give it up, man, to talk to the people.
Okay, so this week I saw some behaviors from adults that I don't know that I've ever seen in all of my years of teaching. This week, one of the little girls came to school. Mind you, I teach 5-year-olds. One of the little girls came to school and she was really upset because she didn't have her backpack or her lunch. And I said, okay, well, Mom will bring it. And she's like, no, she won't. And I'm like, okay. She's like, can I go to the office? I said, sure, go to the office. Ask them to call Mom. So she comes back. She doesn't say anything. She just sits down and then they go off to PE class. And while they're in PE class, I go and I ask the secretary, hey, did they call Mom? And she's like, yes, and Mom's not going to bring the lunch. And I said, so what is this 5-year-old going to do? How's she going to eat? Oh, just give her food from the other kids. And I was like, what? She's like, just have her friends share their lunch. And I was like, that's not right. They shouldn't be feeding this child. That's not their job. It's not their parents' job. Oh, but that's all we can do because the mom's not going to bring. And I said, okay. So being the mom that I am, I went to my classroom and I had stuff left over from a party we had, just cookies and milk and juice. And so I put those on her desk and then I gave her my blueberries from lunch because they don't eat much anyway, but she needed some food. And the next thing I know, my coordinator is telling me that the mom said only give her a glass of water, do not allow her to eat food because it's a punishment. She didn't do something at home and therefore the punishment was no lunch. And so first of all, I couldn't even believe that you would do that to a 5-year-old. So then after school, I was talking to the woman who'd subbed for me for 3 months, and I said, has this happened before? And she's like, no, but she also did it to the 3-year-old. Her 3-year-old son had the same punishment that day. And the mom was furious with both of the teachers, for feeding her children because we weren't helping her punish the children. That's not my fucking job. My job is not to punish your child. My job is to educate and protect your child while they're in my care. Part of that is making sure they have lunch. How unethical and inhumane to withhold food for an entire day from a 3 and a 5-year-old. So I went to the principal and talked to her about this because this is not appropriate. It's unacceptable. Mexico has this big thing about children's rights. It's against their children's rights. And the mom told me that if they didn't do what they were supposed to the next day, she was going to send them with no lunch again. And the secretary had told me, oh, if she does it again, we'll just do the same thing. We'll have the other kids feed them. And I was like, but then what's that saying to the mom? You don't have to send them food because other people will take care of it. They're taking the responsibility from the parent and putting it on the other parents and the children. I have never, ever experienced this before.
Sounds kind of messed up.
Never. And the principal said she's been teaching for, 35 years. She's never experienced it before. She said maybe it's a cultural thing because the family's from Spain. Maybe this is something they do in their culture, but it's definitely not something that's legal here. And so we were talking about how do we help these parents as a school? How do we help them see the difference between a punishment and a consequence? Because the parent kept saying, this is the consequence for them not getting their lunch bag and their water bottle and putting it in the car when they got in the car. They're 3 and 5. It's not it's their job if that's their responsibility, but it's also her job as the mom to make sure that they have those things. You can't put unrealistic expectations on your children and then get pissed off when they don't meet that unrealistic expectation without taking some ownership of it yourself.
Okay.
An appropriate consequence would maybe say, fine, if you can't do these things, then you can't do something you want to do after school. Not, you can't eat.
No food for you.
And these people eat, my kids eat at 10:30 in the morning, and they go home by 2. And by 1 o'clock, they are starving. They want to eat their food that's left from their lunch, or, I can't wait to go home because I'm so hungry.
Gonna die.
So doing that to little people an entire day from like 8 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon with no food, that's cruelty.
Is it?
What?
Is it? Apparently the parent doesn't think it is.
So we talked yesterday in our Teachers in Service Day about how can we make these changes, how can we help the parents, how can we help the students, blah, 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 blah. And one of the things I was suggesting to one of the other teachers was we need to have, like they do in the Discovery Center, like parents' nights where they come and do workshops. And she said, oh, but we have those every Tuesday, but the parents don't come. And I said, but what incentive do they have? We have all these things, like if they don't do this, if they don't do that, if they don't do this, then the kids get kicked out of school or there's some sort of penalty. Why not give them an incentive? Okay, we have 1 a month. You have to attend at least 6 out of the 10. And if you attend more than the 6, then you get a discount for the next year's enrollment fees. Oh, that's a great idea. And I was like, but why hasn't anybody thought of this before? We need these parents to know the difference between a punishment and a consequence and what is age appropriate. But they just, the forethought is not there. The innovation is not there.
Okay. That's it.
Oh no, I have a whole long list of stuff. Not a long list, but I have stuff.
Your list looks like that big.
Yeah.
But that's a whole long list?
I have. So, developmentally appropriate consequences. We've been dealing a lot with this with some of the behavior in the classroom and behavior on the playground. Some of the boys are super, 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 super aggressive in their play.
How many supers was that?
You haven't seen the shit that they do.
That's just the number of supers was...
Holy shit.
Can you be more super?
They are so dangerous.
It would be mega then.
Alright, they're mega.
Just keep going.
They
We
have
must
these
entertain ourselves.
big, huge dinosaur toys that are heavy, and they swing them around and chase each other and hit each other with them. They hit each other with the gigantic metal Tonka trucks. They push each other down from like football stances and running, and they're hitting the girls and they're knocking over the boys and they're running over the babies when they're supposed to be standing in line. So when you talk to the parents about their behavior, the parents are like, okay, like it's not a big deal. But when one of these little kids gets hurt, like seriously injured because of the inappropriate play, then they're going to want to overreact. When this stuff could have all been squashed months ago.
But isn't that what we've seen from the culture is don't be preemptive, don't think ahead, only be reactive and be overly reactive.
Yeah.
Isn't that what we've seen
Yeah.
from last year and this year? I mean, this is just, don't go in September and October and start talking about a child that needs
Services.
extra help or whatever. Just wait until the year's over and say, oh, now it needs to be something, this needs to be done. It's like, but now it's too late. Now it's over.
Right.
You can't, none of the things that you think should be done can be done now.
Right.
So pass on the problem to another person. I mean,
Yeah.
I just think these are cultural problems that you're facing now, and unfortunately, this is the culture. This is what they want from their schools, from their culture, and what they think is good. And this is probably why you have what you have when it comes to how women are treated and all the other stuff.
Yeah. Well, we had this thing yesterday as part of our afternoon of the in-service where we were given a survey from the Secretary of Public Education, and they wanted to know names of each child who fit into these three categories. Ones who needed extra help, ones who were benefiting from the extra help, and ones who didn't need any extra help at all. And so I filled out my thing, no problem. And I had 10 in my needing extra help group. And out of that 10, 3 of them didn't already have extra classes. But the others were still taking the extra classes. And some of them were progressing quite nicely, but some of them, there was really not much change. So we went through this whole conversation about do they really need it and blah, 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 blah. And one of the teachers says, okay, now that we've talked about it, which student can you remove from that first list? And the other American teacher and I looked at each other like, what? What are you talking about? Remove the child from the list because we talked. They still need the help. And she's...
No, you talking gave them all the help they
right?
needed.
And she said, but do they really need extra classes? Do they need extra services? And I said, yes, that hasn't
That's
changed.
why they're on the list, you idiot.
And
Jesus.
she was like, but blah, blah, blah. And I said, wait a minute. Let me ask you this.
Boy.
Why are you trying to remove children from the list? That's the real question here. Not does the child need significantly more help than the rest of the class, but why are you trying to prevent them from getting that and preventing their name from being on this list? 1, these aren't your students. 2, these aren't your personal children. Why are you trying to prevent this? I'm not trying to prevent it. I just didn't think, we needed 10 kids on the list. And I said,
Why was
but
there
I know
an
these
arbitrary
children.
number
Right.
of 10?
and the other American teacher, she had 8, and she started bawling because she had 8 kids that needed help. And I looked at her and I went, why are you?
And you already had 10 on the list?
I already had 10 on my list.
Oh, God!
I said, why are you crying? And she's like, because I feel like a failure. And I said,
And that's what they do.
you're a failure?
Yep.
Because you have kids who can't identify numbers and letters and won't participate in the classroom, can but refuse to participate.
And that's
your fault?
what this system and these managers...
No, this is
that's
an
what,
American
no,
teacher
I'm
who's
saying
dealt
that's
with
what
the US system.
You're not listening to what I'm saying. That's what this system does to the teacher. It makes the teacher feel as though they have done something wrong and they are less than a teacher when it was the student all along that was not able to perform. They never want to put the onus on the student.
Right.
And so then they want to remove them from lists and make the teacher feel bad.
Yeah.
As opposed to looking at the student and saying, yeah, maybe this student needs extra help because the student needs extra help.
Yep.
Not because anything that you did. They came to us this way, which is always a problem of how do you intake your students.
Right.
Because the testing and the things that you do here in Mexico is substandard.
So, I just looked at her and I said, you can't take responsibility for something that doesn't belong to you. Stop doing that. This is their responsibility. Have you told the parents in the past that these kids need extra help? And she said, yes. I said, have they gotten them the extra classes? She said only one child in my class has extra classes. I said, okay. How is this your fault? And then she kind of just took a step back and she's like, this is what happens when you work in U.S. public schools. They always make you feel like it's your fault. And I said,
yeah, but that's because they're trying to get rid of you.
Right. I said, I don't have that. I'm not going to own something that doesn't belong to me. I know for a fact that it's, at least these kids in this list, out of the 10, 7 are already taking extra classes. I know one of them started and her mom pulled her. I don't know why. I know the other 2 need to be evaluated and so that they can be starting the extra classes. But I also know some of these kids that are the lowest, they had recommendations in November and the parents ignored it. So that's not my fault. I can only do so much. I have 24 kids in the classroom. I have no other adult. I do differentiation. I set them up in little groups. And when I do that, I am bouncing from group to group to group to group to group nonstop. And so I can't ever really focus on the group that needs the most help. Because I'm constantly bouncing around answering questions or helping with assignments or whatever it is, this small group that has been identified and put together so that they can get the extra help never really gets extra attention in the classroom because I am one person.
You are.
So
You're not the superwoman?
I'm a woman, which makes me super, but I'm not superwoman.
Oh.
My entire life has been a lie.
So yesterday in this survey, it was asking, what can you do as a teacher in the classroom to make things better? What can the school do to make things better? What can the government do to make things better?
Hire foreign teachers that speak English.
And then that was one of them. And one of the things that I put was there needs to be a co-teacher in the classroom daily or at least 3 days a week that is designated to that group, because we have a co-teacher now who comes every other week for 30 minutes this day, 30 minutes that day, now we're a different day. But if somebody calls in sick, she's not coming because she's got a sub. Or if there's a meeting, she's not coming because she has to go and fill in for somebody else in the meeting or whatever the issue. I was supposed to have her for 2 hours this week. I had her for 30 minutes because we had no school. Well, women didn't go to school on Monday and we had no students on Friday. So 30 minutes out of 2 hours she was there. That's not helpful.
I have something.
What? You're interrupting her to say I have something?
Well, it's related to her something. The Monday thing.
Uh-huh.
Why were you surprised and what seemed like being appalled at the violence and destruction on Sunday?
Wait a minute. Stop. What are you
was
talking about?
Yeah, the protests.
Yeah, why are you talking about that now?
Because I want to know.
Well, you're going to have to wait.
Okay.
We'll come back to that.
I know. We're going to work. I haven't even begun my list yet.
Okay.
You just came out of nowhere, left field and such.
Yeah.
You just woke up, didn't you?
I just, yeah.
Okay. You hold
Okay,
on.
it's
Hold
on,
on to
it's
that.
on the list, dude.
It was already on the list.
Okay. So I think that the takeaway from me for yesterday was stop trying to own things that don't belong to you. Start putting the onus back where it belongs and on the institution and on the government and on the student and on the parent. The teachers are not the ones who should shoulder all the responsibility for every ounce of it.
Especially if you don't have the agency to change it. What? You took a big breath. I figured you were about to say something.
No, the thing.
If you want to find the Traveling Farrs, you can find us at the YouTube, Facebook, Pinterest, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, anywhere that does podcasting. At The Traveling Farrs. If you like the Instagram or the Twitters, Traveling Farrs. If you like the email, travelingfars@gmail.com. And the blog space, where you can hear the audio version of this podcast only. The travelingfars.blueberry.net. No E's in the blueberry. There you go.
And if you're listening to the audio only, go to the YouTube so that you can see the funnies.
Yes, and then you can ring bells and
Subscribe buttons
and
smack the like.
Smack it.
Sure, why not?
2020 style.
So many different ways. I feel like
it's like everybody has
very
said
violent against the.
But everybody has said.
Bite its face.
A way of dealing with the like and the dislike. I love.
Gerald.
Yeah, Gerald Undun's. If you didn't like this, hit the dislike button twice.
Yeah.
That is the best.
That is very
It took
funny.
me a long time to realize why would he say the 2 times? But do those things. Give us feedback.
That needs to be.
Let us know
Say that.
what
Okay.
you're thinking. Say goodbye to the people.
Bye, people.
Say goodbye to the people. Say goodbye to the people.
San Pellegrino.
You didn't even say goodbye to people last week.
We would appreciate being sponsored by San Pellegrinos. It's refreshing and healthy.
Peace.
Sure.